I'm Buck Weezer. Welcome to another video with Buck's Small Engine DIY on YouTube. Now, before you get too excited, I need to tell you that it appears that this engine is seized up. Oh my. There's a nice nest. Well, my initial observations are I don't see any broken connecting rod. All right, I'm forcing the engine to turn. That's pretty darn tight. All right. All right, well, I think it's good news. I don't think we got a major serious problem here. I think we might be able to solve this. All right, well, after a few days hiatus, we're back here with the Craftsman lawn tractor with the Kohler Courage engine. And after we verified that everything was good inside, it's not really seized up as had been originally diagnosed, but it is pretty stiff with a lot of compression. I decided to pull the valve cover, which I've done right here, and it may not be visible quite yet with those springs and rocker arms in place, but if you look closely inside that exhaust spring, valve spring, it appears that our valve guide or valve seat is protruding out, especially as compared to the other. And that could be the reason why our compression release mechanism is not working, why the engine wouldn't start, and why this mower ended up being parked for 9 years. I want to try to repair that in something of an unconventional way without having to remove the head. One option is to, replace the head, but I think it's possible to fix this without even taking the head off of this engine. We can do it right here, right now, together. So let me show you that little process. Yeah, so you remember Fluffy's little nest? That plus this leaking valve cover, getting this all oily, accumulating dirt and debris, causes these heads to overheat, and that sometimes is the reason why that valve guide starts popping out. So here's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to take a piece of string and feed, I don't know, 12 inches into this hole, right through the spark plug hole, and you don't want it to get lost in there, so make sure you leave out enough to be able to pull it out. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn the engine so that the piston slides up, and that string inside there will force up against the valves and keep them from falling back into the engine when we remove these springs. All right, so that's the idea of what we're doing here. So the piston's right there. So let's take it back down. All right, and then we'll stuff the string in there again. And this time we'll put in more. I've never actually tried this before, so it's the first go around for me. All right, so now let's turn that again and see about getting the piston up there we go. So now it's tight, so I can feel that it's stopped good. Just like that. And we're going to stop right there. All right, so now we're going to loosen these rocker arms. We have access to the spring and the retaining clip, and hopefully get that off. All right, a 10 mil socket opens this up for us. we'll just move them out of the way entirely. Okay, so when this job's all done, of course, we'll have to reset these valves. Now, I think I'm going to compress this, and that clip will have to come out. And hopefully we can do that by hand. I might need a helper. I can with two hands push the spring, but then I don't have the freedom to pull the clip out. I'm trying an unconventional use of a Briggs & Stratton spring compressor. We'll see if it works. Oh, I think I about got this. Aha. There we go, we did it. Don't lose the pieces. Alright. So, now we can see that this valve guide has protruded out. And I think we can tap it back in. Although that won't keep it in. We'll also need to get a punch and make some pock marks around in this aluminum to hold it in place. Sort of like a valve seat repair job that we've done in the past on one of my lawnmowers. Something similar to that. Okay, so what I think I'm going to try to do is use this nut driver because it's a hollow center, and I'll be able to slip it over the valve and then tap on this with a hammer, and hopefully that valve guide will reset in there. Couldn't actually tell if that moved or not. I'm not sure if it's moving or not. Feels like it's moved a little bit. No, I don't really feel like that's going anywhere. And I don't know how far out it's supposed to stick to begin with. Alright, I've attempted to set it, but it seems to have reached its end. I don't know if I really even moved it all that much. So I'm just going to take a punch and make some pock marks into the aluminum around it. Will hopefully hold it in a little bit tighter so it doesn't slide out. Alright, now I'm going to wrestle that spring and clip back in place. We'll adjust the valve here on this side and take it from there. Alright, okay, it was a bit of a chore getting that spring and clip back in, but I did it in a rudimentary fashion using these Briggs & Stratton valve spring compressors, not exactly designed for this kind of engine. Alright, so I think I can take a string out. That's always good. Don't want to leave any of that in there. Before we're done, I'm going to thoroughly clean this area because it still has a lot of grease, grime, and gunk built up on there. But I can put the rocker arm back on, and we'll have to adjust that properly. So let's put the engine at top dead center or close to it. Okay, it's going in, and he's coming out just a little bit. Basically, you just want to make sure the valves are closed when you set the adjustment and gap the space there. So that'll be our next step. Okay, so I'm setting the valve lash on this exhaust valve, and the way you do it is to use the 10 mil socket to set the gap, and then when it's where you want it, to tighten that Torx bit inside. So it's 7/7 of an inch for the exhaust valve. So it's a little bit of trial and error. That might be good. There's other videos out on how to do this. That might be a little more informative than this one is. I'm just trying to get it done. Alright, so I think that's pretty good. I'm going to hold that 10 mil in place and then tighten the Torx bit. Alright. And I'll check it one more time. That's okay. So the exhaust is 7/1000 and the intake is 5/1000. I have it a slightly more than that, but I'm going to leave it. I could tighten that just a bit, actually. Well, that's about it. I think that'll get the job done for us. And I can start putting the rest of this engine back together, because I think we might have accomplished what we set out to do here. So I just want you to take a look at the movement of these rocker arms as I spin the engine manually. So this is the exhaust side, and you're going to see a little bump. Alright, so on this side the intake is opening, intake is closing, and now you see this little movement of the exhaust. That's the compression release bump. Just that little bump right there. Now the exhaust valve opens all the way. Now the intake opens. Now watch again for the little bump here on the exhaust valve. That's the compression release. See that little bump? It's not a fully opening valve, just a little bump to relieve some of the compression. Now it's fully opening for the exhaust stroke. So let's put in a spark plug, see how it feels under compression. Alright. Alright. Now we spin it by hand. Boy, sure spinning a lot easier than it used to. That was... Okay, so intake. Little compression bump. Still feel a little bit of resistance there. But I think we did it right. And I want to put the battery in and the starter, and see if the starter will spin the engine for us. Okay, so I got the top of the engine put back on, top cover, flywheel, starter's back in place, magnetos on there. I still have valve cover off, but I want to see if the motor will crank, not necessarily fire, but just if the starter, charge the battery, if it's going to be able to spin our engine. So I want to just see what happens. That is very encouraging. So it does spin it, and it's got enough juice to do that, whereas before I think it had been locked up. Okay, off camera I cleaned out this carburetor, cleaned out the fuel tank, replaced the fuel lines, new fuel filter. Let's see what we can get here. We'll cheat a little with this guy. I want to stop it there because so you don't have the valve cover on, but at least we got our first indication of its willingness to run, and I'm really happy about that.